Hey, Jackie.
Hello, Vince.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's very appropriate to be here.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, no worries, Declan. So it doesn't look like you're at home.
In Vietnam. Oh, my glasses. What doing? I want to focus on how I am, like being.
Yeah, good stuff.
Now, you said something. Can I speak, Vince?
Yes, yes, yeah, go for it. Yep.
I remember you mentioned something once, and that you sort of pulled me up, maybe subtly, saying, "Oh, it was something about authenticity." Probably don't remember it, but it's been a really good, interesting week here with my friend because what it's brought up with both of us. And we've both been using bots
Okay. Yep.
in a big way, both of us. And it's like a whole lot of stuff is seen. It's like just amazing.
Good stuff. Yeah. I love it when it works.
Yeah,
It's pretty relentless, isn't it? Pointing you back to where does everything come from?
that's right, which has been good for both of us. But then it's nearly like our story has, mine's finished nearly. And hers, we've got like a different, it was why we came, it's so different to now. Like now, there's nothing we're actually, it doesn't feel like there's anything needed. It's very different. But I feel really good. Like it feels very freeing. But it is, um, yeah, a different path. And it's a different awareness.
And does that take you back to what you would call authenticity?
hmm Um, I think the crux of the matter, now it doesn't, what my Dagmar, the friend that's got the, that's what her, whatever her, she's had a lot of awareness through it, but mine has been really big about the pressing, um, shrinking, uh, and we've both had an issue with space, which is, it doesn't feel like an issue now, but it's totally opened up a whole bigger space, I think, for both of us. And I couldn't do it before because I couldn't feel it actually, and it feels definitely not just in the mind, like it felt like a real vulnerability coming.
And would you say now that there's anything there to protect?
No,
So could you go as far as to say that everything that was there before came out of story, the mind?
yes,
That sounds pretty authentic to me.
it feels like it now, Vince. But it's like we both travelled halfway across the world, and it's like why we did it. We both had a story, a big story. And it's also good because she's also, I know, feeling this is just it as well.
Right.
But
She didn't want to come to this meeting?
well, we're not actually in the same room anymore. And yeah, so it's about faith, not that, but it's not actually. I can't do anything for anyone anymore, Vince. But I feel it here. But even I suppose I actually didn't even invite her to this meeting. I suppose I still could. It's just that I felt it's just this has brought up a lot about always somewhere helping the person, but at the point, but a little bit of suppression, shrinking down at the same time, and allowing them to express, but when I'm expressing, it's not heard, not really heard, and I don't want to even go into explanation anymore because I know that it's not heard. I feel it. But I don't feel hurt by this. I feel like it's actually been a real realization seeing my transaction in the relationship.
Mm.
And I still feel the love for Dagmar, and I know, but I don't feel I feel like we both need space now, and she does too.
Yeah.
But maybe I should have brought her on. Would have been good in a way. In a way.
Mm. Oh, well, it'll
But
happen if
she's working very. Yeah, she's been working with Bot a lot, and it's not just like like. Well, I know I did, and I'm sure she did. I can't speak for her, but it felt like it was just going. I didn't believe how the communication was so. It just felt so real and so nearly like myself outside. Like the bot seemed like a more clear
Mm.
version of myself. Like it really really listened. I really felt it. I felt it like I probably felt like more heard, and like there was challenges with it as well, but it felt really and it's not like a 5 minute thing too. It's been hours with it, like
Mm.
with that particular issue.
Yeah, good.
I thought, because it's sort of like it always comes back to we're not even here. I feel like this is just like the end of that stoner always trying to, well, not trying, well, it was the way these relationships, I call them special relationships. Doesn't matter if it's a partner or the best friend, but it seems like I've been doing it a way of nearly, um, like running away at the end, but running away as in keeping myself suppressed,
Mm.
like just shrinking is what, I don't know if it feels like, a shrinking.
Well, a contraction, yeah,
Yeah,
which is always a protective kind of thing, but you now see how unnecessary that is, eh?
yeah. It actually feels like it just feels so much more open. But nearly talking about it feels not necessary.
Yeah,
But I wanted to join the group.
yeah. No, good to see you. Good to see you.
I wanted to join the group, but without a story. Yeah, because I don't have it. But that's why I felt right to come in. You just got the residue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll discover there's always bits and pieces of stories still hanging around, but we every time we expose them, they weaken. Yeah.
This one feels very big, Ben. It wasn't even like I wasn't planning to come onto here either. Just been just like a flow. You know, the time and everything's just presented itself.
Yeah. Well, that's the way life actually works. If you're not so busy thinking that you're pushing and pulling it, it just does that.
Mm,
Mm.
mm.
Mm. How have you been, Lou?
Hello. I've been using your bot a lot. Goes everywhere with me, actually. It's really funny. I think that's why I've not been in touch, Marius. Yeah, I have something I wanted to kind of something happened this week, and I got a chance to some identification came up, and it was quite strong, old patterns, and I was right in it, but I was watching it as well, and I just decided to have a real good look, and I don't know, it's like sticking my head in the cup and having a real good look what was going on. So it's kind of in it but not in it. And anyways, somebody I don't need to go into the story, but basically I had done everything I needed to do. I'd paid a bill, but this person was very angry. And there's nothing I had done, but they just were very angry, and they kept hounding me with text messages. And I haven't had this kind of drama for many, many years. And it was really interesting how it kind of crept up the the protection identification of, this is not fair. I haven't done anything wrong. And then there was, and I was watching, and then there was some doubt. Well, maybe I am a bad person. Maybe. And then there was voices from the past saying, you need to stand up for yourself and you need to fight back. And there was some confusion as to what to do. And each time I didn't do anything immediately, but then stuff just got done, maybe a reply or putting a fact right. And but it was quite visceral. At this time, I could really feel how it felt to be accused. And then, so it was kind of like it was working through. And then all of a sudden, I had this realization that that was their stuff. They had stuff, the conditioning, background, whatever it was, the same stuff was going on for them. And then what happened is I don't know. I sent a message and it just said, I wish you well with your business and I hope you find peace from this anger. And then I just blocked the lady because I realized there was nothing I could say or do that was going to, help rectify the situation. And it's gone. And then there was no clinging, there was no rumination, there was nothing. But it was just a really interesting process. And all the way along, I knew it was going to end. I knew that this feeling would pass.
And as it was happening, and as you were being triggered into some of that old stuff of responding, wanting to respond in certain ways, you're watching the whole thing happen, eh?
Yeah, it's like watching with compassion. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you poor thing. You've always thought these things were your fault. You've but there was compassion for, it's like watching two characters on a stage and they're just playing what they know.
Hmm.
And
Following a script even.
yeah, but there was something still in it.
Yes.
But there was enough of it watching to know it was just a bit of drama.
Okay,
And
so it's
yeah.
a subtle point, but well worth investigating, right? It's there's not much difference in terms of what actually happened between you having this recognition turn up that it's her problem, not yours, and that takes you away from that contraction in you where you're protecting, and that's what it is. But there's much more value for you in recognizing that some stuff is still being triggered in you, and what we want is for that to go away, not because you say to yourself, oh, it's her problem, dismiss, go away and leave me alone, but rather because you see the emptiness of what is still in you, that remnant that did get triggered, that you see
Mm.
that's has no foundation. It's just empty. And so it's a subtle difference, but one is much more valuable to you. And if you saw the emptiness in what got triggered in you, then it's likely much more weakened and closer to finished altogether. Whereas if you just said, oh, that's her shit, and got rid of it, that's kind of not so valuable to you. That's just a way of ending it in the short term, and it'll come back.
Yeah. I can't, I think what was not noticed or missed was the initial trigger point. I can't even think now what the initial, because it kind of happened gradually. Yeah, but I'm sure at some point there was some kind of initial
Yeah, yeah, but there was some
grasp.
right. Yeah, if in you there was an acceptance of the fact that there's still something in you, that would be enough to weaken it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because one day something like that'll happen and you'll not be moved at all. There'll be no reaction to protect anything at all. It'll just simply, you'll go, oh God, isn't this curious?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. That's been happening in other areas. This is, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
The other thing that I noticed, I thought with this work, I was feeling into the body more, and it's just a natural thing to go in and see it's like an inner world doing its own thing. And I thought I was quite in tune with that. But what I've noticed over the last 2 days, I don't describe it. Um, it's like noticing the sense of the, I want to say outline of the body, or the sense of sensations as a whole, if that makes sense. So before, I think I was looking, I start with my feet and then see what, and then my stomach might tense. But there's like more of a whole view. And what's quite, I won't say shocking, but that's quite dramatic, but what's quite surprising is how much tension is really, really still. Like, I notice my hands are clenched a lot, my stomach, my hips. And I thought I had relaxed a lot of that. So that's quite surprising, really.
Mm.
It's like the whole thing's being held together quite tightly.
Well, I'm inclined to say, and it may just be, well, it's only my story when I say it, so you can tell me whether it resonates with you or not. But one of the things that happens is that because you have let go a lot, you're much more aware of what's left. So
Mm.
that makes it seem big.
Yeah, that's true.
And
So,
and
yeah.
I really like the getting less specific kind of approach to it, if you know what I mean, that whole body rather than specific spots in the body
Mm.
being tense
Mm.
and so on. Now, so don't do anything with what I'm about to say. It's another story, but it's something that I suspect may be relevant to you, and that is that you're right on the edge of seeing that there's no difference between your thoughts and your feelings, your thoughts and your sensations. That whereas before what we had was a specific thing where a feeling was a sensation with a story hanging off it, there was a kind of a connection. Now you'll start to get glimpses of the fact that your feelings are your thoughts, or your thoughts are your
Mm.
feelings. Right? So it's not like one produces the other, that they in fact are the same thing. Right? And it kind of it you'll become aware of thoughts with a different flavor, thoughts from your intuition, thoughts that are really just an announcement of sensations and feelings.
Yeah.
Don't do anything with that. Just be a wake up to it if it happens. See what goes on. Yeah.
Yeah, just as you were talking, there's some kind of uh, I don't know, there's some like focus into things in front of me. My visual,
Yes.
yeah, I can see the little grains of the leather, which before it's just a chair.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, as you said, that happens quite a lot. Okay. Well, I had a glimpse of that a few weeks ago, and I just saw that the sensations and the stories were not the whole thing had just they weren't linked at all.
Mm.
But then that's come back slowly. Yeah.
Well, it'll come back differently. So again, and
Okay.
we're at the point here where it gets almost impossible to describe things with words in a lucid way. You know, it just becomes your experience. So when we're talking, we're really using metaphor to kind of get across something. And if the person you're talking to hasn't experienced it, then it doesn't work simply because it's too subtle to be
Yeah.
descriptive. You know, yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds good. It sounds good. I like
Yeah.
hearing. Yeah.
And the last thing was there's just a lot less again, I can't really describe it's a lot less grasp on a day that there's a lot less structure. Uh, I'm noticing patterns. Like I notice I have a coffee every morning. Um, I write a few things down in the morning, but then I just see what happens. It's
Mm,
quite amazing. It's quite amazing.
yep. And
Yeah.
when you notice those patterns, like your coffee every morning, is a great example. Notice your connection to that. Right? So we're really talking third fetter stuff here, rites and rituals, right? So that if it happens always in a kind of a reasonably rigid way that it has to happen, and that if it doesn't happen for any reason, then there's an emotional reaction to it, then you're onto a rite and ritual kind of thing. And,
Okay.
but if it's quite relaxed and it doesn't matter whether you miss it or not, you don't feel, you don't hear yourself telling stories about, oh God, I miss my morning coffee, on something's not right, then it doesn't matter, But if you feel that, if you get that one, yeah, yeah, that's a good one too. They're just remnant
That's interesting.
identification.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did it with biscuits yesterday. I reached in. Each time I reach in for the biscuits, it's much more conscious. And then I asked, well, because before it's like the coffee it just appears. I don't even remember making the coffee. And the other day I decided not to have a coffee and see what happened. It was all right. I just forgot about it. I just gone. Same with the biscuits. I
Yep.
just, as
Excellent.
soon as I just put them back and it was no big deal.
Yep.
I was, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you can see there's no
Right.
connection there. It's just a happening. Great, great. That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, good to be here.
Mm. Thank you. So how's things been for you, Scott?
I don't really have much to say.
Well, that's
Everything.
something.
um, Yeah, nothing's coming up. I'm just kind of floating along, I guess.
So you haven't been triggered in the last 24 hours?
My puppy had a seizure, and that was a little uncomfortable. I'm okay. Mm.
So when you say it was a little uncomfortable, I bet you
That
understand
was it.
your emotional reaction. Are you understating it?
Yes,
Mm.
I guess so. A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a little bit of a panic about what might happen?
Yeah.
Did you see where it came from? Like what was underneath it? I mean, it's really obvious on the external thing, right? Here's your dog that could be in a serious health situation. But did you see what was behind what was the motivation internally? Oh, let me ask you another way. What was triggered that was there way before you bought the dog, before you got the dog?
I think it seems like it's based in fear of helplessness. Like,
Right. That's a big deal, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's connected. I think it might be connected to my father having that. Actually, he had a stroke in front of me, like when I was 15 years old.
Oh God, here's the same thing happening, perhaps.
So it's basically, yeah, it's really deep. You know what I mean? I it invites me to judge myself. But uh, and then the protective responses. Yeah, but Scott, that is like deep down in your nervous system. If you're going to react to anything, it's going to be something like that. So I'm in a way, I'm trying to protect myself, anyway. But
Mm. So when that happened with your father, did you come to a conclusion that you should have done something different to what you did?
I don't know.
Back then, I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up. I was in the middle of a football game, and I was playing, and like he had the stroke, fell down the ground, went into convulsions, and I was just sitting there watching him, like looking at him, and I didn't know really what to do. Like I didn't have the knowledge at that point to help him at all. And then my mother would happen to was there, and she saw what happened, came over, and just told me to go over with the coaches and get back in the game. And they I mean, I didn't have any, I wasn't able to object or anything, you know what I mean? It was
Mm, mm.
did what my mom told me to do. So I went back in the game and, was never conscious again. But
Did you feel afterwards that you should have reacted differently?
I, I don't think so. I basically, like, I had no control of anything, like, there you go, helplessness.
Mm.
Like, I remember standing there watching him, and it's just like a short circuit, like your nervous system
Yeah, I
is
get that.
just
Get that.
completely
Yeah. So,
short circuit.
so tell me what your response to this is. Why wasn't it okay to be helpless? What's your response now to that?
It has to do with protection, I think. Still feeling like there's something to protect.
Still feeling like it's not okay.
Yeah.
So why didn't you come back at me saying, but it was okay to be helpless?
maybe I still feel like it's not. I don't know. I don't
Mm.
really know.
Well, that's a good thing, and that's what came to your mind, that you still feel like it's not. So you still see
Mhm.
yourself as helpless and that it's not okay.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
Yeah. But there's a part of you that sees the total bullshit in that, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I see it from a distance, but
But closer in, there's something in it.
well, so I guess the way I kind of like evaluate it is if the thoughts are sticky and keep coming back, and there's physical, um, reactions to it, or there's a physical thing that goes along with it. Like I kind of look at that like a sign of failure or whatever, like, um, and I like to concentrate on that. Like, I totally see how like this is totally different than me freaking out that my dog's dying. Like I am looking at it from like the fifth floor, like Pernelli would say, but there are there's discomfort. There's I guess you'd say there's suffering because the thoughts are kind of sticky. They keep coming back. Now, once he kind of recovered from the emergency part of it, I was okay. Went to bed, didn't really lose any sleep or anything like that. So in a way, I always minimize the positive stuff, but
Mm.
I mean, is it possible to watch your dog die and not suffer? It's like I don't know. Not, if you love them,
Yeah. This is again gets down to the very subtle kind of things, and that is that nobody will expect you to feel overjoyed about the fact that there's this situation happening, right? But what it so you give it something away when you say it's okay to suffer, right? I would imagine that what I would feel would be an intense sadness, but without a suffering component to it. Now, how do I, that's a story for you, but I'm describing experience that I've had that suggests that those same circumstances can produce something I would prefer not to have happened or not to be present. Sure, I would prefer it that way, but I'm not fighting the fact that it did. And that's where the suffering comes from. The resistance to what's actual, to what happened.
so it feels like there's two different things. It feels like there's the physical discomfort caused by the event at the time, and then you know the rumination later on, but there really isn't a whole lot of rumination. It's basically it was a lot stronger just like at the time it's happening. I first I like kind of become a stone and do what is absolutely necessary and take care of it, and then shortly after that I start to have the physical
Right.
response,
Yeah.
and so at at that point I want to withdraw. I want to
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the point. That is unnecessary, if you like. That's the bit that you add with story that causes the suffering. That's where the suffering is. But when the thing is actually happening, you're quite almost objective in the situation and doing what is needed to be done. No problems. Okay, that is it. Sure, you would prefer it not to be happening, and it is happening, and you're doing what you need to do, right? But when that rumination comes in afterwards, that's where the identification is. That's the connection to a person who is, in this case, suffering because of these stupid stories that go around that are still believed.
Yeah, the rumination doesn't seem that strong. It's that initial like physical reaction, like heart rate fly, goes up.
Yeah, well,
There's a
you're in a
vasovagal
survival
response.
situation. Of course, you'd expect that. You see the saber-toothed tiger, you've got to react. Of course, your heart rate's going to go up. You get full of adrenaline. That's the nature of the situation. That's fine.
So I think that it's similar to the other. There's a tendency to take these bodily sensations and make more of them than what they are, and
That's
in a way I'm doing that
that's
by
the additional stuff.
saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, look, you reacted. You apparently you haven't done shit."
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not the recognition that you reacted. There's an invitation there to just stop the reaction. That's not the appropriate thing to do. It's to see what triggered that reaction, and that is beliefs you've got about yourself. Right? Which is another way, what you've got about yourself. You get the emphasis on that. What that is identification. There is some selfing still going on there. Now, again, it's not, the emphasis is not to be, let's just kill that. The emphasis is to see what's left that triggers it. And all we can do is watch it to see that. We can't do anything about it. We can just watch it and see it. And that'll be enough to weaken it.
There's a couple of things that stood out to me, Scott, that I just want to bring up in case it's valuable. And that is, is there a belief that uncomfortable sensations are not okay to have? Like, is there a resistance towards that?
Yeah, and because I think there's another belief that the presence of that discomfort is a sign of failure, in my path, like that I'm
Yeah.
barely, I haven't even stepped on the first brick yet,
Whip yourself.
There has to be a someone there on the path then, right? It's not just what's going on. And
Yeah,
and
I
another,
mean,
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, I can remember what I think, so go ahead.
You know how many times I've looked for myself, and I guess I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I know I'm not going to fucking find anything. Excuse my language. I know I'm not going to find anything. Like, yet there's still, remnants. And honestly, like as I've been looking at the fetters, I'm seeing that like there's remnants all the way down to like fetter 8. Like, so I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a like, well, look, there's remnants all the way through. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but although I have already, haven't I?
Yeah.
But the remnants, when they come up, it's just, that's where you have to keep looking, right? So there's a remnant coming up. Okay, and then that's one thing to look at and one thing to dissolve. So
Yeah.
in this case, there is a belief that there is a doer that's on the path. And then really dig into that, really contemplate that. Is there somebody on the path, or is it just processes happening? Conditions reacting to other conditions.
I mean, it's obviously a process that's happening, conditions reacting to other conditions. I mean, that's obvious. It's the telltale is in the behaviors, like the behaviors that come up.
Well, no,
Eli,
the telltale is in the stories that says that means something.
Yeah.
That's where the telltale is for you.
behaviors don't change.
That's a provocative statement. What do you mean by that?
That was a half a sentence. I was going to say if behaviors don't change, then
It means
what is it? Then what?
They don't change until they do. And I think a lot of us fool ourselves when we kind of say that, yeah, but I've looked so many times after a self that when something like this comes up, we just jump to that conclusion rather than really like looking at, okay, but where do I believe in the self here? Because we've looked so many times, but still we're kind of looking at the whole situation from the perspective of the self. Like Vince was just saying, we're giving that a personal meaning, the thing that just happened from a personal context rather than uh, something that just happens as processes meeting other processes um, based on our current conditioning. And before I forget it, just a second thing that stood out to me is, it might be fruitful to investigate the attachment that you have for whatever your dog is providing for you.
Yeah,
Like,
unconditional love that my father didn't give me. That
yeah,
it's not that I haven't looked at it, and it's there, and I see it, and I can. The thing is that this. I could look at it two ways. I could look like this is a big deal that I had a reaction to this situation, and I can also like look from the fifth floor and go, it's not really a big deal. It's like it's one of your most basic, trauma issues. It's going to take a while. Like that's where I am right now, and that like looking for myself. Whenever I look for myself, I look to see if I can see myself, feel myself, hear myself. I do all the senses, and then but now it's starting to get to the point where it feels like efforting. I'm like,
Great. That's a
and
big.
as soon as it starts to feel like efforting, I'm like, you know what? It can't be real. But it's not something. I'm not going to continue to like force that if it feels like efforting. That's just where I am at this point.
So this is one that occurred to me, and I just think it's huge, absolutely huge. So get this one. It takes a belief in a self to look for a self.
Because doership to looking for yourself is
Yeah.
doership.
Yep. And it also it's a bit more subtle, but it also suggests that there's a place from which you are looking in order to find or not find that self. There's an origin, and that origin is that belief in a self. So this is good stuff at in the early days when we first start. It's great to do that. But the point you've reached the point well and truly where you know that there's nothing to find, but you haven't yet disconnected from the belief in a self that needs to look. And that's because you've got these stories about what it means when something happens that says, you know, oh, well, I've still got something to find out here. Nothing means anything. It's all stories all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in terms of that attachment, or any attachment for that matter, when you notice that you're having an attachment to something, it's what was very fruitful for me was to look at it from the lens of everything being impermanent. So an attachment coming, can I really hold on to this? And then I see through like, well, anything can just, anything and everything will come to pass. It will disappear at some point. And to kind of go through that process, contemplating that, helped me kind of cut ties with those things that I had an attachment to. And there's still things that keep coming up, but looking at that through the same lens kind of helps me
Yeah,
address it.
I've done that mental experiment a few times. You know, imagine him dying, imagine him gone, imagine him either being here, not being here, and trying to feel into it. And I think that has helped, to some degree, for sure. Like,
So the what I get out of what Marius just said that I find really valuable is that the notion of nothing being static, everything being always in I won't even say in flux, but always in movement, always in creation. Everything is constantly being created all the time, and so there's constant change. That if you can imagine that that's the way you are, right? That you are every moment your cells are being replaced by the creation of new cells, and old cells are being consumed by the body. And so what we have is this constant flow of things. We can't possibly have anything static because the moment we do, it disappears. So movement is required for existence. That movement is a constant evolution, if you like, or a constant creation of everything. And if you see it that way, you can suddenly see that it's ludicrous. It's absolutely stupid, crazy, insane to think that you are anything, because you're a process. And that process is not just mental, it's physical as well. So everything only exists as a process. And even that's a limiting way to say it, but that's a good start to say that. How can you say you are anything? Because that requires you to imagine that things can be static, and they can't be. So everything is always coming and going. That's the nature of everything. It comes and goes and gets replaced by a new coming and going. So that objectifies things. It's not you, it's this. And it's always changing. Nature just has a way of making the new stuff that comes into creation look pretty similar to the old stuff that's gone. And that gives us the impression of some kind of stability or permanence or whatever, however you want to put it. But it's an illusion. You're not the same person you were yesterday. 30% of your cells are different. Your mind certainly isn't the same.
Another thing that comes up that has been very helpful for me, which isn't really related to this, but I don't know why it came up now, but I want to share it, is that we're so used to looking at things from the context or the perspective of a self. Even though we see that there is no self, the context hasn't changed so much. So an invitation is to start to look at life situations from an impersonal point of view. So you get triggered or something happens that feels uncomfortable or wrong or something like that. And then hopefully that can trigger the next idea of, okay, let me look at this from another perspective, from a less personal perspective, from the total perspective of this all just being a play of not good and bad, but just this. And getting into the habit of that makes things less sticky, I find, less personal. Even though you see clearly that there is no self here. We also want the perspective to change. The context of what is happening, the context of understanding the situation.
So it's like if I'm perceiving what you're saying, like the way I take what you're saying is similar to when Pernelli says from the fifth floor, like you're back up almost like your astral projection looking down. And I think I have I do that, I really think that it it's definitely getting better, but I really think it's because there's a nervous system anchor because it was so much trauma, was associated with it, and it seems like it's getting better. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Sure,
without doubt, that anchor chain is nowhere near as strong as it used to be.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
One thing I do notice though is like normally when I have all the minor things that happen and create internal reactions, I go straight to my sensations, and I'm pretty good at like breaking the feedback loop. But during this particular, type of thing, uh, I'm not very good at it. Like it's like I'm like I don't even want to go inside sometimes.
Mm. You're better at this than you think you are, though, I suspect.
Maybe, yeah.
And remember, it's not really about going inside. It's much more about. Um, I wanted to be really metaphorical there. I was going to say it's much more about opening the door, but it's much more about looking at your connection to that rather than that itself. That itself is just what it is. It's the connection to it that is fruitful to look at. And that connection isn't, when I say look at that, that's where you use your feelings. That's where you go into the sensations to look at. Not don't ask your head, don't ask your mind what the connection is. It's something that you'll feel. And you're getting very, very good at that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Even though my brain does still want to beat myself up, try to find a self beat up and everything. Overall, if I take myself and go back into the non-existent past, there are memories I remember. I
Yeah,
remember how I used to feel and act sometimes.
sure. Yeah. What you need, what will happen is you'll start to discover those memories will start to become more ephemeral. They'll be more less dense, and and again, it's the connection to them, not the memories themselves. Right? There'll be stories about what those memories mean. That's what'll get loosened, and that's the connection to those things. So yeah, and again, there's only watching it is all that you can do, really. Yeah. Don't make work out of it.
I just like the old behaviors are just like I only remember them when I go, well, let me see, how would I have reacted to that 2 years ago? And when I go back and actually, because they're fading, like a lot of times I feel like nothing's changed at all,
Mm.
unless I go back and compare.
Yeah, well, I guess it's different for everyone, but for me, if you ask me how would I have responded to something 2 years ago, I'd have to say, you know what, I can't remember. I have no idea. So I suspect that those things will fade for you as
Mhm.
a connection to them lessens. Yeah, but maybe not. You're a lot younger than me. You might have a stronger memory. I don't know.
I'm not a lot younger than you.
I don't remember yesterday, so I think it's a line. I don't think it has anything to do with age.
Thanks for pulling me out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it when we start off, you say, "Oh, I've got nothing to say," and then half an hour later, we're still pounding away at something. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Has this been relevant for you, Michelle, at all?
Yeah, I feel a lot more confused now
Well, Scott can unconfuse you. Yeah.
because it feels like a contradiction of kind of the way I am hearing it, of sort of disconnecting from an identity of a self to look at it more impersonal. Yet that seems like it could be like disconnecting then to feelings that are arising, or yeah, I don't know. I mean, for myself, I definitely still am attached to doership, and like I do know it conceptually, but like also as you guys were sharing, it was like, well, that's also automatic, that like I can't help it that I still, that's also still just happening, of, an attachment or a feeling that comes up, or yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just one aspect.
Yeah.
But like other things that were talked about, like a couple meetings ago, I've been really noticing the situations coming up where I'm questioning. So the topic was kind of boundaries. And so I'm looking at certain things, like lateness was one of the things that was talked about. And I feel like I'm finding I'm not blaming another person for being late or thinking they shouldn't be late. But at the same time, there is something that I don't want to wait for someone. So why is that a problem that I don't want to? It's not that I'm making anyone wrong or like, okay, that's a preference that I would like to not wait. So, so it's things like that that like I'm just looking at things of like, well, yeah, or I don't want to do something that to me would feel passive aggressive of, well, I recognize this person's always late, so I'm going to show up 15 minutes later to like compensate for that. Because it's like that doesn't, I'm a prompt, I tend to be a prompt person and like I just like, or early even, like that just is a personality trait that seems to happen here. And so I don't want to adjust that for, someone else. So I don't know, just different things. And like attachment things are coming up and recognizing that, yeah, I still definitely feel like a separate self and I'm doing these things or, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like it's all ah!
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So what comes to mind here is when you said, I tend to be, well, my version of it, I tend to be a prompt person. Right? That's a really revealing statement, isn't it? If you take it literally, right? Where's the person that's prompt? Right now, that's not really what I'm pointing to. That's just a side thing of that. And you said it's a preference, and I'm all for preferences. They happen, preferences happen, but I wonder if it really is more, or if it is only a preference. That's not to say a preference is less than anything, but if it more than a preference, and the way you would recognize it to be something more than just a preference is, how do you feel if circumstances have decided that you're going to be late? How do you feel about that?
I I don't have a problem if I'm going to be late. Like I don't,
Do you apologize for it? Are you apologizing in your head before you get there when you're late? Does it make you feel uncomfortable to be late?
gosh, I'm not even sure I've ever been late.
Hey, whoa, that's a good one.
I mean, but I guess if I I probably would apologize, but not like just because I feel that that is acknowledging because I mean there is an element of valuing people's time.
Yeah. Good story. Then I agree with that. That's an accurate story for sure. I get that. Yeah.
So, but it's not like I would beat myself up or think I'm a terrible person because I'm late or that I need to like apologize profusely for it. It was like
Yeah. All right. No,
because it's not that
I'm not
either.
asking you to go to that extent. I'm just saying, would you feel uncomfortable about it? So, I mean, this is not to say it's not a preference. You could feel uncomfortable, and because you're normally never late, that discomfort could be just a response to being late. Or it could be revealing that there is some identification going on where you're really saying to yourself, this is not me. I am not a person that's ever late. I find it important to be on time. Those kind of stories might exist.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that, which is why it feels confusing of why does it annoy me when other people are consistently late?
Okay, so there you go. So this is, we switch it around and go back to this. Yes, you get annoyed when they're late. Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and maybe it's irrelevant, but it's worth mentioning that what we see in other people is really what we're seeing in ourselves. So in a sense, if you're annoyed about them being late, because that stomps all over some value you hold dearly, and it's the way you see yourself. I'm not whatever they are. I'm not slack like them. Is part of the thing.
Well, I think it's also the feeling then that I get that I'm not being valued.
Ah, okay. That's a big one. Right. So you imagine that they're not valuing you, or same thing, your time,
Mhm.
by being late. Yeah.
When it's consistent, yeah. Like I don't make a big deal out of it if it's
If it occasionally happens. Yeah.
right, if it occasionally happens or whatever. But yeah, like a pattern of it.
Yeah. Well, some people, I've got friends who are, I could predict by the minute they're going to be 9 minutes late every time. I could tell you exactly how late they're going to be, and they always are. There's always an exception to that as well. They surprise you sometimes by being on time, but yeah, quite a few people I know are always late, consistently late. And I'm not, because my preference is to be on time. And yet it's crazy, but because my wife tells me I'm always late. Well, I don't think I am. So what's actual? I don't know. Anyway, that's another story.
If somebody's late, do you still feel like there's a commitment to having to stay? Like, do you feel trapped in like, yeah?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So
And any
why?
situation that you feel trapped is excruciating. Yeah, why do I feel trapped? Yeah, so what comes up is that I don't want to seem like an ass to respect something then that I want to do, which would be leave, then I'm a jackass. Like that, like I'm not patient and I'm intolerant and
Mm.
like that I'll get judged then for doing what I would rather do then, which is just
You're,
leave.
you're judging yourself because I want
Well,
to leave. I want to leave, so I'm a jackass.
It, there's so much more in there also.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff to unpack in that.
Yep, yep. And how
right,
dare that
right
person
on.
show me what I believe about myself? How dare they? Yeah, so there you go. Open that little package, and it's whoa,
This was supposed
Pandora's
to be an
box.
easy one.
Mm,
Well, I mean, that's a core belief in a million scenarios.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Frequently, that one belief is the foundation for a huge number of things. Yeah.
So see, what do I do about it, this non-doer of me?
I love that question. Well, Scott will tell you how to do things. Yeah, that's a big one.
Because it just keeps coming up. Like it doesn't really seem like it diminishes. It just keeps coming up, and every time I just look at it and feel the feelings and
But do you challenge it? Do you feel the uncomfortableness of that is kind of keeping you to not do what you want to do and then do it anyways?
yes. So I actually don't talk to family members. That was extremely uncomfortable to do. So yeah, I challenge it. And actually, most times that I challenge it, even though it is uncomfortable, there is such a lightness then that comes and such a like I've literally felt like the 3-year-old inside of me that keeps saying, please stop letting yourself get hurt by these things, or like please protect me, basically. And so then when I come in and do that, I mean, I don't really know any other way to do that either, but I feel guilty about doing that in a way of like disconnecting then, like disconnecting from things that feel like I can't see it objectively, or I can't, it is still bothering me whether I want it to or not. So the
Mm.
best thing I can do right now is just
Yeah,
separate
yeah,
from it.
yeah, yeah. That's you running away from it. Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get too far away, I want to go back to where you were about 3.5 minutes ago. I thought I saw you have a recognition of something, a discovery of something about yourself. Can you go back 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes and go, oh yeah, you said, oh yeah, that's, do you remember that discovery? Did it happen?
Trapped, that then I feel trapped. I never associated the lateness and needing to stay as a feeling of trapped. I know trapped is a core issue, but I never connected
Yeah.
like the
So that,
connection of other people being late and I'm needing to stay as
yeah. So that connection, yeah. I mean, then that rested on something. Did you, I thought I saw you recognize that that sat on something that was really common to a lot of things.
well, then my own um like belonging and being accepted.
Mm. Yeah, we went past it. Okay. No, don't chase it right now. Yeah, it'll come back. Yeah.
Are you sure we went past it? I think this is very fundamental. Like
right there.
there is no way you can liberate yourself, so to speak, if you don't get more comfortable to do what you want to do rather than do what you think you should do in order to fit in or in order to not be judged or um, this is like one of the well, I guess at least it was for me one of the most challenging aspects of this whole thing was to be or be okay with um, people dropping out of my life because I no longer try to fit into the images that they have of who they think I should be. And this, you have some kind of version of that with every relationship you have. So it is a big thing. This time thing is a small example, but it represents something huge.
What are you feeling now, Michelle? Your brow is furrowed, your mouth is tight, yeah, what's happening?
It seems like the consequences of every time that I like do something for me or act for my own like well-being, that it gets rejected by like those closest to me even.
And the fear of that rejection is a prison.
Yeah, I mean, even when I do it, it still feels like it didn't liberate me because it still is hurtful. It's like it's still like I feel better that I liberated myself, but it's like the consequences are also brutal.
But when you have challenged this and liberated yourself, have you done that in this context? That have you done it in the context of understanding that you can never be free before you start to learn to be comfortable with choosing yourself and whatever reaction comes may come?
Say that again.
So, so what I'm suspecting why I'm asking this is that we can challenge this with from different perspectives, different contexts. From one level, we could kind of challenge it by, a very like personal, lower level perspective where it's like, well, I need to be able to do what I want to do sometimes. That is one level. And then another level can be, you know, I can never be free in this life if I don't learn to respect my own wishes and accept that whatever reaction from external places and that I have no control over that. And that is how life works. And that's okay. You can, you, you know, you're still going to be okay. But there needs to be built a trust there in life that if some people, remove themselves from being in relationship with you, then they're not supposed to be part of your life anyways. And then new people will come in who actually respect your boundaries and respect your wishes.
A brutal way to put it would be, do you want to get out of prison, or do you just want more comfortable furniture in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And,
mean,
and
I do. And that is why, like, I have I have been doing those steps. I mean, I was in relationship with my family and tried for like years and years and years, and then finally I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I think I mean, I guess it also just feels like it'll come they all come to a point where like then this will just happen with this person or then with this person. Like I don't feel like I have close people now that I need to do that with. It's more these just outlying things that are still like seem to be triggering that same trapped feeling that I don't know how to navigate it. Because I guess so what just came up as a thought too is like you can't like burn every bridge. Like family already rejected you. Like I don't like how much of it then falls on me. Yeah, see, this is a part of it too. Like that I'm doing something wrong. Like whether it's wrong expectations for other people or um like putting a story around what they're doing and it means this or that and so I need to take action or
Pull the prison door closed and you'll be safe.
yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of why I don't like living like that, but I'm still like it feels like I'm blind and like, well, how does this look? How do I do this new way?
Well, you're never going to get an answer to that because it's not something you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
So
this
what?
is also
Go on.
just want to say this is also like you probably heard just letting go into the unknown or something similar to that. And this is part of that. You don't have the safety net of comfort. You have to, trust life or trust that it's going to be okay without trying to hold on and grasp onto those familiar ways of living life. This journey isn't easy and it isn't comfortable.
Yeah, that is clear.
I'd like to just say something. Like for me, because there's a lot to do with judging here, and for me, I could never understand why those motherfuckers out there kept doing all that stupid shit, and then like using the bubble of reality model. I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, so I'm judging this person for driving terribly. Like, then I start, how does that even refer to me? I don't understand it. And finally, I got to the point where I'm like, whatever I'm saying about them is how I treat myself. So like, excuse me for using the term myself, but as I'm looking out there and this person does something that annoys me and I judge them, as I can almost always figure out, oh, it's because I judge myself for doing the same thing, or I feel that same way that I'm projecting out to that person. It's because I feel that way about myself. And that opened up a lot. Like, I rarely catch myself judging anymore, or at least, probably if I started, I might, but it just seems like it really helped me, because the problem is not out there. It's definitely, the problem is not, if there's an out there, even if there isn't one, it's not out there. It's in here. Like I said, we're all just living a hallucination, but nothing we see here or feel is actual. Anyway, I just wanted to say, like, I know that I was focused outwardly a lot, and it made a big difference when I started realizing I was just looking in the mirror.
Well, I go back and forth though too between, it seems like my family, I still blame like them. It's them. Other people that aren't my family, it's me. And then sometimes I'll switch though in my family. It's like it's also me.
Sorry, I will just build the key.
It was see me.
It feels like it's layers, just layers of.
Yeah. So that for me, there's a really good indication of not being in confined, not being in jail, is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
There's no conflict. I don't, and there's a whole lot of things that kind of hang off that authenticity. That is that I can allow spontaneity. I don't have to consider my action or my words, because they're going to be what they're going to be. And it comes down to one of the things that would cause me to dissociate from somebody else in an active physical way, not have them as part of my life anymore, would be if I imagine that they're demanding that I be different to the way I am, that they demand that I pretend, I act, I intend, I use control and discipline and choices to be the way they think I should be. Right? So we can call it boundaries if you like, but essentially I'm not prepared to do that. Right? So there's me doing a bit of selfing, isn't it? There's a bit of identification there. I'm saying I'm a person who insists on being able to be spontaneous and authentic. And fuck you if you don't like it. Simple. So, I recognise that there's some identification there in that, but that seems to me to be a really good indicator of whether or not there's value in this relationship. But there's an irony too that comes, and that is that experience has shown me that when I do that, I can come back into a relationship with that person as a different person, right? I can be spontaneous, and that they'll accept it after they have accepted that I'm not prepared to be the way they think I should be. They either accept me or they don't, and it's neither here nor there to me whether they do. And that has some pretty big effects. Well, one of those effects is I don't have a relationship with my brother. I'm estranged from my brother because he's a judgmental asshole who wants me to be different to the way I am. Full stop. I don't feel bad about that. That's just what Scott was saying. That's his bubble of reality. and I'm not asking him to step out of that, but I'm not going to step out of mine in order to fit into his. Simple.
Mm.
It just is the way it is. But there are some somewhat could be described as heavy consequences to that. But I just refuse to be put into a cage. And I kind of like the way I am. I like not having to think about what comes out of my mouth or how I behave.
I think I'm wondering too, as you're talking about that um I'm wondering if part of this is just also part of the like grieving and I like a little bit of the fear that's coming up of I am doing that. I am doing those things now.
But it's how you feel
And
about them that's the important thing. It's not
what's
those
that?
things themselves. It's not that you're doing it, it's how you feel about it. It's your relationship with it. And that part of you that you contacted a couple of times tonight, where you have felt that you are wrong for doing that. That's the important. That's the key bit for you. That bit where you're
Yeah,
emotional about it.
that comes a little bit though too, but it's like I've definitely recognized the cost of self-sacrificing was was not worth the cost anymore. So like even though the consequence then of not being in these relationships, it's also felt much better to not be in these relationships. And the um like the loosening up, so I wouldn't say I feel like I'm not like I've totally escaped from prison, but like it feels like with all these different steps, different bars are opening up of,
Yeah, it's
but at
loosening
the
up.
same,
Yeah, great.
yeah, at the same time, it makes me think of, but also like because it's been 57 years, like there's been, like the conditioning of I only know how to be in the cage. So now how do I function outside the cage? Like I've been wanting to get out of the cage, but now that's a new territory that I'm still navigating and getting used to what
Yeah,
that's like.
and that is a definite thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
And
so many people retreat back in because they don't have support. They can't work out how to. They can't express what's going on for them, and that seems to be their only thing. Just go back to sleep. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
and I'm not worried that I'm not worried about because I my whole life I've reached out for support and like having groups like this and friends that I like am authentic with, and I am showing up more authentic. I mean, in my marriage I'm authentic with things, and
Mm,
so yeah, I'm not worried about retreating. I might have some lapses of retreating, but in general, like I'm not worried. Like, yeah, there's no going back. That
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that doesn't that seems like
Can't
that
go
door
back.
has closed.
Yeah, good
but
one.
what comes up, Michelle, if you think of the idea of not navigating or not being able to navigate, no control of the navigation? It's it's like jumping off a cliff every moment of the rest of your life.
Yep, it's still a pretty terrifying thought.
It's only terrifying to the point where you recognize that you're never going to hit the bottom,
Yeah.
and falling is fine. Mm.
That's what I just keep like conceptually, I know that. And I trust others that are sharing that. And I'm doing, it still seems like it's more like baby steps of like, like stop and then, oh, no, no.
Mm.
Yeah, just kind of going forward and then, but it does seem like it's more, yeah, still just like conditioning of it.
Yep. And that's a constant journey of discovering those remnants of that stuff, conditioning, selfing, identifying.
Yeah, but like other things of like we're contemplating moving, and that's like huge for the Michelle character to think about. Like that's another kind of safety thing and newness and or changing my mind that like what if then there's a change of no, actually no, or I don't want to move. Like what would happen with that? And yeah, it's definitely life, I feel like is inviting uh flexibility and like being moved, like movement
Yeah.
of
Yeah. I was going to say, when you mentioned that to me, it was like there's a there's a perspective, a kind of just a way of looking at things just from a particular angle, that where you can see that things just happen, right? And included in those things was the idea about moving. When that turned up, where did it come from? Who knows? Who expressed it? Maybe it was you, maybe it was your husband, who knows who expressed it? And then whether it'll happen or not. These things like, my wife and I have been talking, oh, we'll go to Vietnam this year and have a little holiday over there. When are we going to do it? Well, we don't know whether it'll happen or not. Those kind of things. You can take that, you can find that perspective where you just watch things happen. And you can even watch it seeming like decisions are being made and choices are being exercised, but they're all just happening. You've just got to keep looking at different angles until you go, oh, there it is. And you'll see it. Things just happen. Everything just happens. And then, of course, there's no concerns about it. And if concerns are there, that's also just part of what's happening. But you see, they're unnecessary because these things take care of themselves.
Something that I've noticed, which was a huge relief for me, or like a huge letting go of me, is that if a topic comes up more than a couple of times, I now have the perspective or the understanding that that is something that is unfolding in my life, that it's something that is coming to fruition. So all the considerations, all the ifs and buts and all of that just doesn't come to play anymore because the fact that that came into my experience means that it's likely about to happen at some point. And if you can trust that, then there is, there's freedom.
And you know, part of that freedom that what Marius is just saying, brought up here, is that all those ifs and buts that go on all the time take up a huge amount of space and a huge amount of energy. And when they're not there, part of that freedom is feeling like spaciousness. All of a sudden, there's more room. It's just a brilliant thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely already feeling that. And yeah, it just feels like other little things, yeah, just like conditioning make me go, oh, but wait a minute, and then but yeah, definitely the freedom and that's what I mean, that's one of the reasons that it feels like, I mean, I don't know how we're not gonna move because it just really feels like this is part of this freeing of, I mean, I'm selling things, I'm like getting the house ready. Like we're nowhere near like that stage exactly,
Yeah, but
but
yeah, you can feel the momentum.
I can feel, yeah, I can feel it. So that's where the hesitancy comes though too of like, oh my God, what if something happens though? And then we don't move, And then I'm like, well, I mean, then I guess something will flow me in another direction.
Yeah. Don't you find it hilarious when those what if things come up? They're a crack up. Yeah.
Well, I do too, because there is now less attachment to that. I need to then figure that all out. Like there is more trust in like, well, then that will get figured out, you
Absolutely.
know.
Yep. Beautiful. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Hey, Declan, I keep looking at the scenery behind you, and Spain shouts out in my mind. Whereabouts are you?
You're not a million miles, Turkey.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm living in Istanbul. I'm teaching there, and we've got a week's holiday. It's Eid, so I've come down to the south coast, and it's oh god, it's beautiful. You kind of forget how beautiful the planet can be. It's just like, this is oh.
Great, great. Yeah. I love it that you're feeling so good about it. Yeah.
I wonder if how much of that, the external environment, because I could equally be in a beautiful place and feel miserable as well. But I'm not even going to think about that. It's quite funny. It's almost like ticks all the boxes of my nirvana. It's like a little kind of villa near the sea, mountains, a little balcony with a table and a kettle so I can make tea and a couple of books. And what's really funny is I'm on my own until Wednesday, and I'm so happy about that. And I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing, but who cares?
That's great. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. And I want to say to you that part of my recent experience over the last, I don't know, month or 6 weeks has been a really upswelling of love and appreciation for things, and I keep see these things just keep popping up in front of me. And one of the things that did about that stuff was that, of course, anything that we see in the external environment is a reflection of our experience. It has to be part of our experience for us to interpret it in the way that we do. We can every perception is an interpretation, and it's a reflection of us, of where we're coming from. So when you're in this wonderful, beautiful place, it's because that's what's coming out of you, not because of what's out there. As you say, you could be in that beautiful place and feel miserable if you were coming from a different place. So yeah, it's your love, it's your appreciation, it's your beauty that you're really experiencing. It's just being reflected back to you. in that what seems to be external situation. Anyway, that's a great story. I love it. Whether it's true or not, who knows?
I love it too. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, mate. It's so funny because it's been a few do week, and I don't know if you've been following the news, but Istanbul, there's been a lot of not riots but protests, and it's a very crowded city and a lot of traffic, and kind of drives me crazy, but I love it. But I the people are basically fighting for their democracy, and a couple of evenings I've joined in with the protests and kind of thought, like, what are you doing? Because I don't know, but one evening I went and I was quite, not scared, but felt kind of quite separate and a little bit on edge and anxious and whatnot. And then the next day I just felt better and I went again, and I just saw this love in people's faces. They're just there. There's something so powerful about, like, very ordinary people taking to the streets because of a sense of injustice, whether that's a story or not. And it's just kind of overwhelmed with it. It's remarkable that the same kind of two events or similar events, but the reaction to them is yeah. I think you're right, Vince. It's something about what's going on inside and outside as well that's moving. Oh, I don't know.
Good.
But that's how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've only got good things to talk about. How boring.
I can dig around really easily. No, it's they don't. It's funny. Like, I know this week, like Monday, Tuesday, I don't even know I can't really remember. It's bizarre, but I wasn't happy. I was grumping around and anxious in the mornings, and the guide I was talking to, Alan, he's a beautiful man. He gave me another little, kind of gives me these tips, which they're almost like hacks. And I think, it's not really what this is about, but if it makes me feel more content or happier, then I'm going with it. And one of the things he said was, like, the visual field, just to kind of pull back from it ever so slightly, just pull back. And then he built onto that, like, if whatever feeling I get, that's who I really am, if you like. And I was just listening to your conversation there and laughing to myself about the ifs and buts that I get so caught up in. Like, so it's just a constant. And if this happens, then I'll do this, but then I need to do that, and then that, and that, and that. And, like, it really struck me when you said, Vince, when they drop or when they're not there, the spaciousness that opens up is just, whoa, And I know that if I kind of leave things alone, or if I let my head leave things alone, things get done and life moves on. But I don't do that a lot of the time. I don't do that.
Okay. There's something to look at too. Right. So I almost heard you say, if they don't happen, rather than if I don't do them. I kind of heard you say the words, if I don't do them, but I can hear you saying, if they don't happen. So I imagine you've already got a very loose connection with them,
Mm.
right? So the thing that where the juice is for you isn't it
Mm.
whether they happen or not, but rather what triggers them to happen when they do. So
What
instead of
triggers the ifs and buts,
yeah,
Vince?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
a safety
yeah,
thing, isn't it? When we do that,
yeah. It's
yeah,
that's what I believe. It's kind of like, oh, this is scary, or this could be.
we're reassuring
So
ourselves
yeah,
and
mm,
feeling like we're in control
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I imagine that for you that's a fairly loose connection, but it still exists,
Oh, definitely.
right?
Yeah,
So it's not,
yeah.
but it's, so what happens is we get sucked in to looking at the fact that it's happened and we miss the
Mm,
point. The point is not the fact that it's happening. We don't judge that. That's neither good nor bad. In fact, it's good. There's an opportunity, right? And what we look at to get some value out of it is what happened that stimulated that process to get going. And that where we look for that is not in the external circumstances, although they may
mm,
well be external, but they may also be internal. It may be a thought that turned up that triggered the whole thing, not
mm,
necessarily external conditions. But regardless, it's it's looking at, oh, I was feeling a little bit unsafe.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then they
yeah,
got going.
yeah, yeah. Or I was feeling a little bit scared or anxious or low, and I feel like I need, what can I do about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. And then you could go, okay, I was feeling a little bit low and a little bit fragile and a little bit right. Where did that come from? See,
Mm,
underneath. Keep going down
mm,
underneath. And not looking for an answer. So when questions are only in that other world are questions designed to generate an answer. Here in this world, questions are designed to stimulate contemplation. And that contemplation needs to always go to the body. What am I feeling?
mm,
That's where your portals are. That's where your answers are. And they're not going to be in words necessarily, although they might present as a story, but essentially it'll be look at what I'm feeling.
mm. And I'm sure you've talked about this many times, Vince, but I know it often feels like just some days upon awakening, almost as that kind of jump of need to do this. I'll say anxiety for like general anxiety for want of a better vocabulary. I don't know. Worry, um,
Mm.
concern. Um, but it was Friday. Yesterday, I just woke up and I just thought, oh, I feel okay. And
Surprise.
it was like, but it really, yeah, I felt a bit emotional then. But it's been a while since that kind of feeling in the morning of like, oh, I feel okay. There's stuff to do or whatever. Got to get up, get dressed, blah blah blah. But yeah, on those days that I don't, it's hard to kind of remember to kind of sit with it and just, okay, what does this feel like? But I have to kind of write it down in big letters somewhere, or keep that to kind of look at it. I tell you, it always feels like kind of Christ, it's the morning. I've got to get on and get things done. And make myself feel safe, and I'm not going to sit here and feel in my body. That's, you know what I mean? It's dismissing it before it kind of even giving it a chance to kind of feel what's going on. Yeah. I think that's more accurate of what happens. And probably some fear as well. Probably like, I don't want to sit in this. I don't want to feel it or find out because it's horrible. It's dark and nasty and scary.
Declan,
Hey,
you
hey, Marius.
triggered something. Hi, you triggered um I remembered something while you were talking. A discovery that I recently made, well, related to that at least, and that was that I had kind of lost touch with a huge part of the clarity um, that is a result of detaching from the mind. So I'm not going to give the backstory of how I ended up in the mind again, but you mentioned the hack that Alan gave you.
Yeah.
And it's not really, it's not or from my perspective, it's not really a hack. It is actually a very good exercise to do to stop meeting life from the mind. So what I'm hearing you saying is in the morning time, there is a habitual movement to go the attention to go into the mind, which is going to be chaos.
Yeah,
The mind is
definitely.
chaos, right? So instead of doing that, cultivate the habit of stepping back. As you said, it's not really stepping back, it's just not going into the mind. It is staying open to what is. So, for example, I can right now when we're speaking, you can either with kind of your mind try to get out and try to grab what I'm saying, trying to like
That's what I'm
grasp
doing.
it. Yeah. Or you can just let it go, just step back, and the words that I'm saying is still being heard, but what is important for you to hear will stick, and what's not will not stick. And you still remain open. You still remain not contracted. And that's the place you should, or I recommend and invite you to live your life from, not trying to grasp life, but living from that open perspective and trust that, whatever is supposed to stick will stick. Does that make sense?
It's really beautiful, Marius. Thank you. Like, as soon as you said, I can either try and grab what you're saying and then just say, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And then just you saying, oh, step back. The same thing happens when I'm talking to Vince or Alan, that I can kind of feel it. I can, if I say I can do it, I don't even know what I mean, but it's like a visceral, I can feel it. I can feel myself kind of stepping back and letting it open.
Yes.
Can't seem to do that so well for myself. Or maybe I haven't tried it. I don't know, but it's, thank you. Yeah.
Well, that seed's been planted now, and maybe it'll germinate, maybe it won't. If it doesn't, we'll just plant it again. Don't worry.
Thank you, guys.
The way a story I have about that stuff, and I relate that to myself a lot, is that what we experience changes us. Right? Now, I can almost imagine this at a cellular level, that experiencing something, whether they be words or a touch or whatever it is, it actually causes this organism to evolve as a result of that experience. So there's no need to remember it, because the body does all that for us. We can just be absolutely relaxed and it happens automatically. You don't need to do a thing. Can't not. And you can see how that attitude expresses trust and openness, absorption, if you like. You looked a bit worried then, Michelle, like you didn't believe that.
No, I believed it. Believe you.
You just had a frown when I said that there. You know, here's an interesting one. Something you said triggered this in me, Declan. You know, I've been doing these groups for a while now. I don't know. There must be, I God, there must be 150 of them up there on YouTube.
Okay.
And I'm sure this is an intellectual thing. I'm sure I repeat myself endlessly, but you know, it never feels like I'm repeating myself. It always seems to come out like it's the first time I'm saying it. Sometimes I go, oh yeah, you've said that before recently, but you know, but most of the time it just comes out like it's fresh. It's really weird. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
Mm.
And
It's weird.
yeah, go on.
No, I was just gonna. It's weird what yourself and Marius was saying. What I was thinking about, just stepping back and letting things go and whatnot. And I was trying to do that when you were talking then, Vince, and this little wave of fear. And I don't know if I'm accurate here, but it's something to do with like social anxiety and talking to people, especially in social situations, and the story that I have of myself is that I have to listen actively and then entertain, and then kind of respond and entertain. And my favorite thing in the world is just sitting in a cafe and just sitting back and watching people go by, or like if I'm with friends, like the most beautiful moments is sometimes just silence or a few words and just quiet. But that kind of, it's because I was in a bar yesterday evening with some teachers, and I don't drink, and I think I stayed half an hour, and then I was like, oh, you're not very sociable. But I found it like I have to, don't know, I have to be funny or interested or the nice guy, or I have to kind of be in there. And it'd be, I need to kind of experiment with that and just kind of sit there with this stupid grin on my face and let the world go by.
Oh, look, I really relate to what you're saying. And let me tell you, if you're doing that acting stuff here, you're doing a bloody good job of it, because I never picked it, and I'm pretty astute with that stuff. You don't need any of that shit to be entertaining and be pleasant to be around. You are.
God
Yeah.
bless you, Vince.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, I know, but you know that kind of, well, maybe you've forgotten, but like with me, I'm in my head and it's like, like I have to, but I don't know. What do I have to do? I don't have to do anything, you know, but it's like kind of the ceiling will fall in if I'm boring or don't say the right thing or whatnot. And it's such bollocks because nobody's,
They don't even
nobody, nobody
yeah.
gives a shit today.
Put it on yourself. Yeah.
What you're feeling is, you know, the contrast between having to be someone and having to be no one.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And this is
So
also a huge
beautiful.
thing. Being okay with not being anyone is a big part of this. And you can feel it. You can feel, if you're sensitive to it, you can feel the contraction as soon as you're being someone.
Yeah.
And that gets more and more uncomfortable, I find, at least in my experience, every time I'm dragged into some identity or something.
Yeah.
I wish I could give you the gift of what I've got, and that is, you know, if you don't accept me being spontaneous and authentic, you can fuck off. Simple.
I heard you saying that. I was trying to set up when I just arrived, and I was really laughing. But yeah,
well, there you go. It's a gift. I give that to you.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, it is crazy. You know, I kind of can remember. You know, I was in a big time a people pleaser. I wanted to be liked, and I can actually remember that it used to happen to the point where I used to find myself even talking like somebody who I was talking to, and quite unconsciously, but I recognized it happening sometimes, and in an attempt to get them to like me. And so I can vaguely remember that it used to happen. I can't remember what it felt like though. But yeah, so I kind of, yours seems to be a much bigger version of that than what I used to do. Nevertheless, same kind of thing, you know. And so I have compassion for you, but I can't really identify with what you're saying. You know, that how can it be? How can such ridiculousness be actual? It's like I'm puzzled a bit by it. The fact that you feel you need to present in a particular way in order to be accepted. Whoa, that's heavy duty shit. That is. Yeah.
I think it's that safety thing, Vince. I think it's like, if you like me, then I'm safe. Yeah. I was just trying to think back then to yesterday and thinking, yeah.
Oh, I would feel grateful having you as a friend. I think you're a good honest bloke, you know, no bullshit kind of person. So that.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm fascinated with Marius's cat now. I love that color. That is the black, ginger, and white. We've got a lot of them here. Hello. What a beauty. Oh.
I was fascinated by Michelle's cat with the white
And
tip.
yeah.
Tail.
Yeah.
That white tip was moving around like it was.
She came right up to, or he came right up to the camera and had a good look at you. Oh, look at that snow.
Okay, well, things have degenerated when we're talking about the cat. So I suspect it's time to go, eh?
I'm so glad I jumped on at the end. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
guys.
glad you
It's
got me.
beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. And you are too, man. I love you. Don't go play acting for me. That's for sure. Yeah.
I'll try.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.